HB 5. Staff, can you please read in the bill?
Yes, ma'am. This is House Bill 5 by Chairman Bacala. Requires school systems to provide a salary increase for teachers and other school employees using savings attributable to the state's payment of certain unfunded accrued liability of the Teachers Retirement System of Louisiana.
Thank you so much. And I'd like to also welcome the Chair of Senate Education, Senator Edmonds, and also our Secretary of Revenue, Department of Revenue, Richard Nelson. And then, so Rep. Bacala, would you like to speak on your bill?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This bill obviously is tied to HB 7, which is the constitutional amendment, which will eliminate three trust funds or three funds within the Constitution, thereby freeing up right at $2 billion. The $2 billion which are saved, the HB 7 contemplates that will be used to pay down the UAL in teachers' retirement system. By paying down the UAL, it'll save the various systems about $289 million in payments in the first year and for years to come. About $207 million of that money is for K through 12 retirement, and then about $75 or $76 million of the savings would be realized by the higher ed system. That's kind of the preamble. This bill has nothing to do with that. The bill has to do with directing K through 12 school systems what they should do with the savings that would be realized if HB 7 passes. So just kind of delineate, they're two separate issues. And Madam Chair, I think I have an amendment to offer, if it just clarifying some language, if we could do so.
Yes, I will offer up those amendments. Staff, could you please read them in?
Yes, ma'am. Madam Chair, members, this is Amendment Set Number 38 to House Bill 5. It is available online, and Ms. Lovello is going to pass out hard copies right now. Essentially, it changes a reference to a blank bill number to fill the bill number in, because we didn't have the bill number in when this was filed. And it clarifies specifically who exactly the bill is applying to in terms of which personnel would get the pay increase.
Okay, members, I know I see some questions. I'm going to first ask if there's any questions on this amendment set. Seeing no questions, is there any objection to the adoption of this amendment? Seeing no objections, the amendments are adopted, so we'll go back on the bill.
Okay, so now we're back on the bill. In the bill, we're making the assumption that the constitutional amendment is passed, that the pay down of the UAL has taken place, and that we now will, the systems will now realize the savings from not having to pay UAL. Basically, it's about a 4.79% percentage points of salary that they will no longer have to pay as their share of paying down the unfunded accrued liability. So that's the savings, is they, instead of having to pay that in your house note, you'll have it free now to use for other purposes. This bill says that other purpose shall primarily be giving teacher pay raises, replacing the stipend that we gave for the last couple years. And that stipend cost was about $198 million in prior years, so it will relieve us of that fiscal burden. Basically, it'll save the state general fund dollars, because we're freeing that money up as savings. Almost all the systems will realize enough money to pay the $2,000 for certificated and $1,000 increase for non. A few will not. That kind of rolls all over the map. It has some variables in there that we're not sure about. If a school system has more employees or less employees than they had the previous year, if they gave other raises, all those things kind of affect the actual savings. But the best guess is, I'll give you the range, the kind of the worst case, best case scenario. The worst case scenario is that the school systems in total could be short best case, about $70,000 is all it would cost to make up the difference for the school systems that maybe don't get enough savings to pay the $2,000, $1,000. And the worst case scenario is about $6.2 million. So we're not talking about great deals of money, because typically the systems that do not have enough money are smaller systems. So you have, I think in one case, it's like 60 teachers are $200 a year short. So you're not talking about great sums of money here. You're talking about small sums. With that, I think I'll just open it up for questions if y'all have any. And since, unless co-author, Chairman Edmonds or Governor's office would like to speak.
I'd like to say a word, sure. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Chairman Bacala. A privilege to be back in House Ed. It always is, and my heart is with you guys. You do a super job. Thank you, Madam Chair, for your good work. Early on in looking at this total proposal, and it is very difficult, as you already know, to look at all of this just within a vacuum. I think one of the most intriguing part of the total tax package is something that we've all been pretty heavy about over the past, at least I'm working on 9 years, and that's the elimination of debt. And when I met with the Secretary early on, it was something that really prompted something that we've been working on. What a great principle it is to remove debt. I know that this is about the teacher pay raise, but it's hard to take Part A without understanding Part B. It's just they go together. And so a few years back, we had the opportunity to look at what has happened to the state, and you may not be aware, I'm sure most of you are, that this goes back to the late 1980s when the legislature had to basically cast forward this super amount of debt. So when you look at a couple of $1 billion being able to come off the records, not only do you gain teacher pay raise, but in the total package, what a great benefit it is to the success of Louisiana and her residents to be able to remove debt. Not only that is accomplished, but if indeed all of this comes together, but the savings of interest and debt in the future, another complete win for the state. So we'll be looking forward to, and hopefully as we work our way through the process of handling this on the Senate side, but I do believe that for our teachers and for our other workers, this is in every facet. I think this is a win for our residents, for our teachers, and for all of our people and leaders, those that get $1,000, all of those benefit. So savings, debt-wise, I commend the Secretary for bringing that part forward. I do not believe this puts us in jeopardy otherwise. Will we have things to deal with of trying to do, Madam Chair, and making sure that we can take care of our rural areas that may not have the monies? Do I believe there's an appetite for that? And I fully want to say to you, although I cannot speak for the entire Senate, but I believe I can speak for the Education Committee on the other side. I'm also on Senate Finance, and I believe that there will be an appetite for us to move forward. I think this bill projects for our teachers, some of our most precious people, for our children. So as you consider, I just want to say thank you for allowing me a moment to be able to share, and I look forward to moving forward on the Senate side if you so choose in your wisdom to pass it forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for coming. And you don't want to come. Okay. So there are a few questions. I just want to remind committee members, because I know that there's a total package. We want to try to stay in the four corners of this bill. I know that there's pieces that are tied to this that will also be heard on the floor, I think, today around the funding. So let's try to keep it to the savings and the teacher's pay raise. Okay, Rep. Freiberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to clarify a few things. Number one, the $2,000 permanent pay raise would happen one time as far as a requirement of districts, and that would be the 2025-26 school year, correct?
No, this would be perpetual.
By perpetual, do you mean?
There won't be a reduction after 1 year. It won't be like a stipend.
Right,
This
right.
will be
It's not a
permanent pay
stipend, but it's
increase.
not saying that every year you're going to have to pay an additional. Okay.
No, you'll pay $2,000.
You're going to
and
pay
that'll
the
remain part of
$2,000 and
their
it's part of
salary
a
going
permanent.
forward.
Yes.
Correct.
All right. Second question. Because there are a number of charter schools in this state that do not pay into teachers' retirement, this bill completely ignores them. They're on their own and are not required to do the $2,000 pay raise, and we as a state are not required to fill that $2,000 hole for them, correct?
Well, this bill only it provides for what shall happen for the school systems that receive the savings. So they're not even part of the package, no, because
Right, so
they
it's not
can't be.
obligating the
No.
state to find $2,000 for
No, that would be-
entities that haven't been paying
That
into
would-
teachers.
That would be outside the scope of this bill. This bill is simply, if you realize a savings, you shall use it for teacher pay raises. So that's kind of it's a relevant topic, but it doesn't fit within this bill, since this is what do you do with the savings? They have none because they don't participate.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Rep. Freiberg. Rep. Carver.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Bacala, I appreciate you bringing this bill. We had some discussions in St. Tammany Parish this summer following the session, and some of our school board members mentioned that they could really use help from the state in making pay raises a priority and making them permanent. And so I want to applaud you for bringing the bill. I want to thank Secretary Nelson for his work on it, and thank the governor publicly, for elevating. A lot of times we need to put more action to our words, and when we talk about valuing teachers, making a pay raise permanent is one of those things that I feel very strongly about, and I'm really encouraged that this is part of the package. I also, to the senator's point, to the chairman's point, this is fiscally responsible to help pay down debt. And I was curious, what is the total amount of the UAL currently in the teacher retirement?
The total UAL is about $8 billion. This pays off that portion, which was the original UAL.
So it's about a quarter of...
Right. So we're reducing it by about 25%. This bill, for the UAL payment, if you just look at the UAL payment, heck, I got it somewhere on here. But we're going to drop it from, I'm giving you, I can't find it in my notes, but it's like we're going to drop it from the UAL payment from 20.95% of total payroll. And we're going to drop that to 16.16 of total payroll.
Great.
Now, part of that is that there's another reduction that's irrelevant to this, but we're going to make a significant reduction to the percentage that they pay toward reduction.
Great, thank you. And then, we talked about there's kind of going to be all across the continuum, there'll be some districts that will not have enough in savings to accomplish it, but we'll probably also have districts that will have more than the expense that would be required to make the stipend. Is there flexibility on how excess and savings could be spent, or would that need to also be?
Well, right now, the bill does not say what the excess, that would be spent on. I can give you an example. You mentioned that you're in St. Tammany Parish. St. Tammany would have enough in savings to provide the raise and have about $2.6 million left over to use at their discretion. They could use it for raises, or if they feel like they have other priorities, they could use it for that. I do think we're going to be discussing that in an amendment shortly.
Sure.
But that's one example. If I look at an example, the first one I see, the first parish that I see that does not have enough funds to cover the raise would be Grant Parish, and Grant Parish would be $8,657 short. So again, it's not a great deal that they're short because they don't have a lot of employees. So that's pretty easy, I think, to make up, and we'll talk about that more, I think, as we go forward.
Okay, I may have to get back in the line later.
Yeah, and there's an amendment coming that's going to be addressing these. I just want to get to the questions first.
You bet. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I know Rep. Rass has been working with the administration, so Rep. Amadei.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Couldn't remember what color everything's got to be before the speakers are on. The mic. Okay. Chairman Bacala, you mentioned a few minutes ago that for the school districts that would be short, I think you said it would add up to about $70,000 total. But then immediately after, you mentioned $6.2 million as worst-case scenario, so that scared me. Do you mean that we don't know yet the total of who would be short, and it
We
could
don't.
be as high as $6.2 million?
it could be 6 million or it could be 70,000. There are variables so that when this was calculated, they used something they called corridor limit. So a corridor limit could be a 5% increase, a 3%, a 2%. So there are things that we don't know that school boards are doing. Are they hiring additional people, which increases the burden, but or have they given raises? Are they planning to give raises between now and the implementation of this? So again, I'm trying to give you the most likely scenario. The most likely scenario is going to be less than $1 million. That all the schools that are short would total a shortage of less than $1 million. But there are variables out there that can't be calculated because we don't know what individual school systems are doing, which could impact the calculation.
Okay, that leads to my next question. You mentioned some school districts that may have recently given raises. By issuing this as a mandate that they use these savings to give a raise, what about the school districts who may have already done that on their own recently, like maybe last year? Does this in any way penalize them because we don't know what they might have sacrificed to be able to pull that off?
Well, you almost have to go to a school district by school district analysis to figure that out, and we're not doing that in this bill. We're simply saying if we're going to provide you, if we're going to pay off your debt, and it's not a state debt, this is the school system debt. If we're going to pay off your debt, we're going to require you, as a condition of us paying off your debt, that you pay school teachers an additional sum through the savings.
Okay.
So that, no, we don't, if a school system decided last year we can afford to give a raise, we're giving them another one as this bill sits today.
Okay, so in a different scenario, if we weren't here in special session, this bill didn't exist, if we come in April of next year, and as a legislature, we decide to give another teacher raise, pay raise, then those districts that have just recently given one would automatically have to give another one too. So we're not changing anything. We're no worse off for it. So,
Well,
okay.
and again, in this scenario, as a legislature, we're not providing a raise. We're facilitating the method by which they can give a raise.
Correct. And I like that. I like it to be a local decision. So that's fine with me. Thank you, sir. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Rep.
Thank you, Madam
Amade.
Chair.
Rep. Brass.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd just like to start off by thanking Rep. Bacala for, bringing forward this piece of legislation. I do have one concern, and I would like to follow up my concern with offering up an amendment. But I'd just like to draw your attention to page 1, and it continues on to page 2, and you kind of touched upon it in your introduction, Mr. Chairman, and I'll just read it for the public's sake. So if the amount of the net savings realized by a school system is insufficient to fully fund the salary increases in the amount specified in subsection plus any related benefits, the school system shall not be required to provide such increase in benefits in excess of the net savings amount unless the legislature appropriates the monies for the purpose. So in essence, if school districts, like you mentioned, was to fall short or not to recoup the amount of cost savings to fully fund the 2,000 and 1,000, it'll be upon us as a body to appropriate. So currently, in the current situation, there's actually a total of, I think, 9 parishes: Orleans, Washington, East Carroll, Franklin, Madison, St. Helena, Tensall, and Grant. So outside of Orleans, all of the remaining of the parishes are kind of small rural areas who probably won't have enough cash overflow to offset the savings that they do not have as a result of us making this deposit. So what the amendment does, Madam, if you could read it into record.
Sure. Staff, would you please read in the amendment?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Brass is offering Amendment Set 83 to House Bill 5, so it's available online. You want to make sure that you look for 83. You're also going to see 80, which is a duplicate amendment, so do not be confused by that. We had technical difficulties this morning. Representative Brass is proposing that the sentence that he just read out on page 1 at the end of line 18 and line 19 and the top of page 2, lines 1 through 3, be deleted from the bill. So we would delete page 1, the end of line 18, line 19, and page 2, lines 1 through 3. And we would add these two provisions. If a school system's net savings amount is short to fully fund the 2,000 and 1,000 as required in the bill, it plus the benefits, it provides that the remaining amount necessary to fully fund the salary increases and benefits would be provided for in the MFP. And then it also provides, relative to the excess question, that if they have net savings realized in excess of the amount needed to fund the salary increases, they can only use that to either give additional salary increases to the personnel provided for in the bill, or salary increases to any other school employees that may not be captured, as determined by each individual school board.
Thank you so much. Okay, so I see we have a few questions pop up. I'm assuming everyone who has a question about the amendment, well, we're going to start there. Okay, Rep. Edmondson, no, yours did not. Okay, so Rep. Amade.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Okay, so Rep. Brass, I have a couple of questions. For the first paragraph that you're adding, this specifies that the shortfalls for those parishes would be included in the MFP. Do you have any idea of an alternative plan if the MFP would happen to not be adopted in next year's session? Since we don't adopt them every year, I mean, it's not a guarantee.
And first, before I answer the question, I'd just like to start off by publicly and personally thanking our governor and his administration, our speaker, Madam Chair, for working with me in a bipartisan effort to ultimately make some of our parishes whole, would allow them to pay for, to award pay raises 2,000, 1,000. But just to answer your question, I guess that had to be a case-by-case scenario. As we all know, that each year Betsy provides a proposal to us that we have to approve. So the intent of this amendment is to, in cases where parishes are not made full, that Betsy would include that amount of that figure within that category, so that once it comes here, we can approve it to where all parishes, for teachers that put into the system, can have that 2,000 and 1,000 raises for that particular school year.
Okay, so I would think that we would know early enough in the next regular session whether the MFP gets adopted, and if somehow it doesn't, we have time to make an alternative plan.
Yes.
My next question is about the second paragraph. Do we have any calculations as to how many school districts will have excess and how much that excess might be?
I don't have that at my fingertips now. I speak with the governor this morning. He will get that information to us so that we could present to the author of the bill, so he can have that on hand as he presents it, if it was able to move to the
question?
floor.
I may have some data here. What was the question?
Okay, it's on the second paragraph in the proposed amendment. It specifies that if the net savings realized by the school system is in excess of what's needed, that they would be required to use that money to provide additional raises, additional salary increases. Do we have any idea how many school districts and how much excess there might be? Because I don't know, just sitting here without those numbers, I don't know if that might be unreasonable in some district.
Well, I think, again, it depends on a lot of variables. I could show you this sheet. These are 7 different simulations by Department of Education with various results as far as how many school systems might be short. Representative Brass gave the example that Orleans would be short. The one that I think is most likely would actually have Orleans with an excess of about $500,000. But again, these are all simulations with variables that we don't have absolute understanding of now.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Rep.
And
Amade.
just to piggyback, just to answer, so the intent of the second portion, I know all of our goals is I know since I've been here in 2018, one of my goals is to continue to raise teacher pay raises. So the second subsection is that in excess of any funding, once the 2,000 and 1,000 is paid, that those school districts must give additional pay raises to positions such as teachers, cafeteria workers, bus drivers, school custodians, and paraprofessionals. So this is kind of, in addition to the 2,000 and 1,000, this allows school districts on behalf of the state to give additional pay raises to our great employees across this state of Louisiana.
So are you saying that the excess would have to be used for
Yes.
other employees, or that it could be used for
Without
the
the discretion,
teachers
but it
instead?
has to go toward pay raises for all personnel. all
Pay raises for
personnel.
somebody?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, it doesn't specify that it has to be the teachers or has to be the cafeteria
It's,
workers?
it's open, yes.
Okay, thank you for
Hey,
clarifying.
Rep.
that.
Amity, I just wanted to let you know, based on, I think, on the lowest scenario for the cost of those raises, if that was the case, I think they would end up with maybe $40 million, $38 million dollars extra above the cost of the pay raises across the districts that would see an excess. So of course, there are some of those savings that some of the districts would not have enough money. And that could be $70,000 to $6 million. But of the districts that would have excess money, that would be up to $40 million. And just to answer your question from earlier, when you said, hey, well, are we penalizing somebody for giving a raise earlier? In reality, doing this actually saves them more money, because that additional raise cost them more money when they had to make the contribution to the UAL. Now we're reducing that contribution amount. And so we're really giving them a benefit in both paying that off, and they're also getting the permanent pay raise from the state, but they're reducing the contribution they have to make for that raise they already budgeted for.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rep.
Madam
Amade. Staff has to make some comments.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, on the amendment, there are a couple of tweaks that I want to read out. On line 9, between increases and shall, insert the words "and benefits." So this just provides that in addition to the increases, that the related benefits would also be provided for in the MFP. And in paragraph 3, at the beginning of line 16, strike including but not limited to school bus operators, because those employees are already captured under the personnel provided for in the bill. So rather than cause confusion and make it seem like they need a special provision, they're already covered. They fall under the definition of personnel. Any questions? Okay.
Okay, thank you so much. But yes, we do have questions. Okay, Rep. Freiberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Rep. Brass, I understand what you're trying to do here, but I'm very, very concerned. I want us to remember that we're paying for these raises because we've rated a fund. The 8G monies went to various things in school systems each year. And the important things that 8G, and we have someone here who can speak to this, part of that was we're losing 1,500 positions in early childhood. We're losing money that goes to textbooks. We're losing money that goes to foreign language teachers. All of those are part of what 8G paid for out of this interest that came from the fund that we are getting rid of. So I am concerned because I'm told, school districts can use some of this excess money to pay for some early childhood slots, and they can increase their early childhood programs. By requiring school systems we're not saying we're allowing you to or encouraging you to, we're saying you must use it on pay raises. That means we cannot use it for textbooks. We cannot use it for foreign language teachers. We cannot use it for early childhood programs. So that concerns me very much about requiring the systems to take the extra money and use it only in one way. I like the flexibility we allowed in the original document to allow school systems to use it, perhaps on some early childhood slots. I know in East Baton Rouge Parish we have micro centers for early childhood. That could increase the spaces in East Baton Rouge Parish for some of those children in our micro centers. So I want us to remember where the money's coming from, what the money had been used for in the past, and let's remember school systems may need that money to support some of those programs. So I would be opposed to the amendment unless Rep. Brass takes out Section 3. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Rep. Freiberg. Okay, Rep. Young.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Rep. Bacala, for bringing this bill. I think, we've been talking about teacher pay raises for some time. That was one of the things that I talked about when I ran for this seat. And so I'm happy that we're at the point where we can actually start talking about what mechanism we're going to use to make that happen. I also want to thank Rep. Brass for bringing the amendment. I think, once these savings are realized, I think ultimately the goal is to allow teachers to see that benefit in the form of their paychecks. And I think what we're initially doing with the bill is they already get the stipend. So the $2,000 or $1,000 would essentially be making that stipend permanent. And so what Rep. Brass is doing is saying, well, if you have more money left over, go ahead and give the teachers another boost, which I think is important to do because our teachers deserve it. I mean, I think our teachers are some of the hardest working folks that we have in the state. And let me tell you, as being a former classroom teacher, it's a calling. You know, it's not a babysitting job. It's not a job where you go and play, and then teachers are under increased scrutiny. I mean, we're talking about under pressure to raise test scores, all sorts of things. So I think this is a good bill. I think this is a good amendment. And so, Rep. Brass, I just want to thank you for bringing it. I think Rep. Freiberg, I heard what you said, and I know the AG funds are an issue for early childhood, but I think by putting with Rep. Brass's amendment saying that we're going to do this through the MFP program, I think that probably opens up the appropriations process to do something about AG. I can't commit anybody to that because I'm not the appropriations chair, but I think by putting this in the MFP, I think we can go and get a dollar amount of what the AG would be and say, okay, how can we do that through appropriations? So I don't think we have to pit teacher pay raise against the early childhood. I think we can do it all. I don't think it's a zero-sum game. So I want to thank you, Rep. Brass, for bringing the amendment, and I fully support it.
Yeah, I'll add you. Hold on for a second. Rep. Brass?
Yeah, and just to reply, and my intent was definitely not to, and is not to, take any type of money from early childhood, because I think everybody knows how passionate I am about early childhood. But my thinking is that teachers are put into the retirement system, and they should be the ones benefiting from any type of savings. We as a legislature has put funding in records amount towards early childhood in the last 2-3 years, and with this governor's his commitment to early childhood, I think we're going to continue to do that. So at no means do I think we're taking money from Peter, robbing money from Paul to pay however it goes. But but like I said, I just think that teachers are putting their hard-earned money into the system, and they should be reaping the benefits as far as any type of cost savings to where they can ultimately spend these dollars across the state in our economy.
Thank you, Rep. Brass. Thank you, Rep. Young. Okay, so still questions on the amendment. Rep. Tarver?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I was kind of thinking the same thing along the lines of what Representative Freiberger was asking, and that is, where does the money come from? Maybe that's for Rep. Bacala. The money, it's coming from these trust funds being eliminated. Isn't that correct? So those trust funds, one of them was the Millennium Trust Fund. Is that the 8G money she's talking about?
No, the trust funds are the Louisiana Quality Education Trust Fund, which has $1.45 billion, the Louisiana Education Quality Support Fund, which has $36 million, and the Education Excellence Fund, which has $482 million. So the total's $1.96 billion. So that's where the money's coming from. Again, that's not my bill. That's HB 7, but that's the source.
I know, but I didn't want to bring that up. But it does confuse me where the money comes from that we're using to pay for it. So that would be the source of kind of confusion between the two of them. And I had the same kind of question. Do we know, or what would be the answer to that? Mr. Director, do you know the answer to that?
Within the funds? The money within the funds is, a lot of these are one-time monies that were placed in the funds. It may have been, I don't want to
So it's a commingling of a bunch of monies.
Well, it's not commingling of a bunch of monies. At some point in time, the legislature decided to put a portion of, say, a tobacco settlement in one of these funds and then use only the interest. The total interest that we're getting out of this stuff that we're actually spending, so we have $2 billion locked away, and out of that $2 billion, we're using about $35 million a year. We're taking off the top. But by using these today, rather than just being limited to $35 million a year, we can realize by using it differently to pay off debt, we can realize $275 million a year if we just pay off debt.
I get that. I'm trying to clarify. Is there a way to determine, maybe Mr. Commissioner, you could answer that. Is there a way to determine where the money came from?
You mean the money that's sitting in the funds now?
The money, yes, the money that is in the fund, because we're taking part of that money, not all of it, but part of it, and using it to pay these. Because I get both of their points. If the money came from money that was intended to be used for a lot of different educational purposes, that's one thing. But if it all came from the systems, the employees and stuff, then the money ought to all go to the employees. And if there's a way to kind of figure that out. If there's no way to figure it out, then we just got to use our best judgment. But
So I think the source of the money that's in the funds it didn't come from education. I think the Education Excellence Fund is part of the Millennium Trust. I think that was the tobacco settlement money. The Louisiana Quality Education Trust Fund, I'm not sure where the money came. That's the big one, actually $1.5 billion, but that was, I think, done in 1985, so a while ago. I think the bigger connection is that this money currently is dedicated in the Constitution to go to those purposes, right? To go to K through 12 education or to go to higher ed. And so because both K through 12 and higher ed pay into the TRSL system and would see the savings from paying these off, that was the thought behind using that money and doing it. And so I think to Rep. Freiberg's point, there is purposes that the interest of the money currently goes to. That's up to, I think, about $50 million, I think, when it's all together, all the funds between higher ed and K through 12. But that $50 million is significantly less, obviously, than the $300 million that we would save in these annual payments. And so there is a significant savings in making those payments. We also get some net savings from the other teacher raises we've already promised, and the reduction in the UAL reduces the size of that payment too, which is additional money that we would save. So overall, I think I get told all the time, and you might have told me this before, is that you think we should run government like a business. Well, if we have...
I told you that?
I think that's something I might have heard from you. But so if you have all this money sitting in an account getting 3.2% interest or 3.3% interest, and we're paying interest on the UAL debt of 7.25%, it makes a lot of sense, especially when you're talking about billions and billions of dollars, to make that transfer and save the money in interest and lower the payments for everybody. So it does make, I think, there is a significant amount of savings. I think there will need to be some amounts that are backfilled, but honestly, they're marginal compared to the amount of money that we're saving.
There you go. That's what I was looking for. It's really not a great marginal difference.
Yeah, sure. It's I think that the Educational Excellence Fund is about $11.5 million, and then the Quality Education, or the Louisiana Quality Educational Trust Fund, gives about $20 million to higher ed and about $20 million to K through 12. So altogether, it's about $50 million that we're talking about when we're saving $300 million a year, and not to mention the $1 billion in interest that we're not going to have to pay anymore.
Just a technical question, I guess. Is there, are we going to be voting on, is this one amendment, the two things in one amendment? Or
This one amendment with two things.
Madam
Maybe
Chair.
that you could break it out into two amendments?
And what I'm actually like to propose, if we strike second section for now, and only in this amendment said that's to be considered that we only include.
Okay, hold on, let me add, I'm adding
But I
Elizabeth.
definitely would like to continue the conversation as we continue to move forward through this process, Mr. Chairman, to where we maybe can address that second component, because I honestly think that, with these teachers put into the retirement system, they should be specified where they're seeing some of the benefits of that, in addition to continuing to provide resources for early child care and other things. So with that being said, if we can retract the second subset of amendment, this amendment said to only include the first portion, which includes the MFP component.
Yes, sir. So just to clarify, I think that what you're saying is that on the amendment set, you would delete paragraph 3. So you would delete lines 11 through 17.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, we still have some questions, so Rep. Freiberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We do have the director of Bessie here today, who could explain to you a little bit of the history of the HG Fund, if you would like to have that done for the committee, because I don't think the committee fully understands, because the money didn't come from tobacco settlements, didn't come from teachers, it didn't come from teacher pay, and it was established for particular purposes, both for K-12 and higher ed. And I think if you would like to have him come up and just give a brief history.
Okay, let's finish the amendment, because that is also, this is Those funds are in Rep. Emerson's bill that we will be hearing. So we can also get clarification. I don't want to
I
go
just
too
wanted
far down
people
the
to understand it
fund.
wasn't teachers who paid into anything. It wasn't tied to teacher retirement in any way whatsoever. It was tied to model programs both on the higher ed and K-12.
No, I understand. We're
Okay,
also now in
thank you.
office. Yes.
I'm not sure of how much early childhood money she's referring to.
Rep. Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for allowing me to speak this morning. And as you know, I'm very passionate about education. But I'm enlightened this morning because it appears that we are able to work together for a common goal. And I'm glad to be here to see that we can work to try to accomplish this. So I'm thanking Rep. Bacala and Rep. Brass for what they're doing. I think the teachers are entitled to this, and I think that we are working together for a common cause. I don't want to get lost in aside issues. This time, we're not fighting about whether the teachers are going to get a raise, reducing it, whatever. We're trying to make sure that the teachers do get what they're entitled to. And I think that this is a good thing, and it's showing more camaraderie, that we're trying to work together on a common issue. So I don't think we should get lost on aside issues that have no direct bearing to where the money came from or whatever. We're on a progressive course to work for common goals to benefit the people, especially the teachers, and that's what I see happening here today. So I don't want to see us get lost in aside issues that have absolutely no bearing on. The money is there. It's available. We can give the teachers the raise that they deserve and the other personnel without arguing about it. So let's do that. Let's vote on it, because I have another meeting I have to go to.
Thank you, Rep. Taylor. Yeah, and I do just want to remind the committee, this bill will be heard on the House floor. We can ask questions. It's also been in Ways and Means and Appropriations. So we have discussed that, but I know that everyone has questions, and we'll have that opportunity on the floor. Rep. Carver.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just real quickly, I was doing some research, and whether or not Representative Brass' amendment stays whole in the way he presented it or not, I just wanted to make the point that we have a lot of work to do as it relates to teacher pay. The average teacher salary in Louisiana is $54,248, according to the Southern Regional Education Board. We are a full $5,000 below the Southern Regional average, so our neighboring states that we compete against. And we are 15,000 below the national average. So while I think it's important, to fight for seats for early childhood, and I will do that all day long, and flexibility for locals to make decisions, we have a lot of work to do on teacher pay. And we've got further ground to cover to get there. And so I just wanted to make that point. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Rep. Carver. Okay, the board is clear. Rep. Brass has offered up amendment set minus paragraph 3. Are there any objections? Seeing no objections, the amendments are adopted, and now we're back on the bill, and I know Rep. Edmonston has a question. You're going to waive your question? Okay. Rep. Young.
Just a quick question. I think, where are we on the Southern Regional average?
The Southern Regional average is 59,145.
So
We are 54.
So with the pay raises, where will we be on the Southern Regional average?
54 plus 2,
So about 50,
56.
56.
3 more thousand to go
Okay.
to get to the SRAB.
Well, and some districts will be there or above. That's our average.
And do we have any data that shows where if we give this $2,000, $1,000, how that stacks up to cost of living increases?
I don't have any of that information. Obviously, school systems, we may not totally know what they're paying. So, I mean, they may have already given another raise this year. We may already be above or getting closer. But I don't have that. Haven't done that with the research on this bill. This is just trying to make sure that savings realized goes toward teacher pay.
Just make it simple, huh, Brett Bacala? Asking too many questions.
No, I don't know the answer, so I'm not going to wing it.
All right, thank you again for the bill.
Thank you, Rep. Young. Rep. Brass.
Yeah, and just for closure, I will be working with Representative Mellerin and the staff. We just had some offline conversation to where maybe we can define that the usage of the excess funding could be some type of academics toward it could go to teacher pay raises, early childhood, to not to where we're going to build turf or putting turf on football fields, something like that. So we are working with Rep. Miller and Madam Chair and the staff just to kind of put some framework around what that can be used for. But thank you guys for the conversation. I think it's critical that we continue to put our teachers and support staff in the forefront as we deciding salary and wages. Because at the end of the day, I think that adds benefits to the students that we have going to our school. So thank you guys for the conversations.
Thank you, Rep. Brass. We do have an amazing committee, and it just shows how much we care of even our earliest learners all the way to our teachers who are teaching our children. So thanks for all the discussion. Rep. Carlson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. At the appropriate time, I move that we report as amended.
Thank you, Rep. Carlson. Okay, the board is clear. We do have a few cards. We have a blue card from Governor Jeff Landry, and it's present and would not like to speak, but in support. Thank you, Lance Maxwell. We also have present and would like to speak, Dr. Keith Carville with APEL.
Representative Bacala.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hi, everyone. Dr. Keith Corville, Executive Director of the Associated Professional Educators, Louisiana. I want to do 4 things today, and I hope I got that all in my head because I need to be quick. First thing I want to do is thank the Governor Jeff Landry and the Governor's office for this innovative and excellent plan. Frankly, this plan is genius. Paying off debt that its margins are considerably higher than the returns of those funds, and committing that to teacher pay raise at no additional recurring costs to the state. I also want to take a moment to thank all of you, because in a time where politics often is divisive, I always know that if I'm before the Education Committee in the Senate or in the House of Louisiana, that you have a long history of working together, working with each other, and doing the right thing for our educators. So I'm proud of you all in your collaboration coming together to support this plan. There are 2 things beyond my support for this plan that I wanted to address just based quickly on the questions. The first thing is talking about how these funds are used. Well, as they've wonderfully pointed out, they're getting maybe $50 million off of $2 billion. Whoever set that interest rate did not set that well, y'all. I do know a few things about investing, and a simple total market index would have done 35% in the last year. And we certainly ain't getting 35% off that 8G fund. Not getting 8%, not even getting 0.08%. The fact that we can take that money, that principal, and turn that into a debt payoff when you're paying an additional 15.9 to 20% off of the debt additional to everyone's salary. Well, that means you instantly get a 4% raise with no recurring cost. And as to the idea that somehow early childhood or textbooks or something else is going to lose in this, well, y'all, once you have a massive debt payment, you recalculate, you re-amortize those debt rolls. It's just like making a large payment on your house. Then the next thing you do is you re-amortize. And this bill covers that initial 4%. But there's going to be future savings, considerable savings in future years from paying off that debt. The next thing I simply wanted to add to y'all, because wonderful Representative Young brought up this question, and Representative Carver had such great responses to it. But the fact is that we're still a little bit below the Southern regional average. But this bill, this work, paves the road for achieving that Southern regional average, because it makes the previous raises less expensive on the state. It makes any future raise by a district or the state less expensive. Every time you give a raise, if you give a $1,000 raise to all the teachers and staff in the state of Louisiana, it doesn't cost you $55 million. It costs you $100 million right now because of these additional cost factors. So if you continue in the future years to follow the precedent set by the governor's office and do additional debt repayments or payoffs, we'll accelerate teacher pay to the Southern regional average. So thank you all for working with the governor's office.
Thank you so much, Dr. Corville. Report is clear. Okay, we have another card present in support but not wishing to speak, Lori Adams with Pelican Institute. And we have one white card present would like to speak, Larry Carter with the Louisiana Federation of Teachers.
First, I want to say good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I'm Larry Carter, President of the Louisiana Federation of Teachers and School Employees, and I would first like to begin by thanking Governor Landry for his efforts in making sure that teacher pay is a priority and our kids do matter. I would also like to recognize that our certified teachers and educators deserve to have the legislature make good on its promise to make what was supposed to be a one-time stipend a permanent part of their salary in the 2024 regular session. HB 5 also takes steps to make the defined benefit one of the best teacher recruitment and retention tools we have stronger, and by paying off part of the UAL before the 2029 payout. LFT is supportive in HB 5 for these reasons. However, we do have some concerns that we have brought to the governor's office, and they're here, and most of what was covered in the amendment definitely covers our concerns, and so we're very happy about that, and we appreciate what Representative Brass and the committee members' discussion around the amendment, because those were some of the major concerns that we had, and so we thank you all for that. And again, LFT supports the bill's spirit, and we look forward to working with Governor Landry and the legislators to resolve this and other concerns. And certainly we honor the promise that was made to Louisiana educators. So thank you all for the discussions we hear today in support of making sure that we take care of those who take care of our young people. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. Okay, members, the board is clear. Rep. Carlson has made a motion to report HB 5 with amendments. Are there any objections? Seeing no objections, HB 5 will be reported with amendments.
Chairman Bacala, I want to apologize. I skipped over you, and that was not my intent.
I was staring at you.
Although Representative Marcel did ask me to do that.
Okay, all right.
Just for the record.
Gotcha.
Ms. Little, would you please read in the bill?
Yes, sir. Members, House Bill 5 requires school system to provide a salary increase for teachers and other school employees using savings attributable to the state's payment of certain unfunded accrued liability of the Teachers Retirement System of Louisiana.
Okay. Chairman Bacala, on your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. This is the bill that's tied to the constitutional amendment 7, and what happens with the bill generally is if 7 passes, it will result in the payoff of $2 billion almost of unfunded accrued liability, which will save the state about $279 million, or save the government. And the bill was amended in committee, basically to say if there are systems out there and their savings realized through the reduction in UAL payments are not enough to give a $2,000 and $1,000 raise to teachers and support staff, then it would be made up through UAL. You'll see probably the most peculiar fiscal note on this you will ever see. The cost is estimated to be between $70,000 and $6.2 million. That takes into account the mere fact that some things, with retirement are outside of the control of the legislature or anybody. I'll give you an example. If a school system gives raises before we give this $2,000, it increases their contribution, which also means it increases their savings, or if there's a recession. So there are any number of factors could influence it. The best case scenario is that there will be 4 or 5 schools that are just barely short on being able to make the $2,000 and $1,000 payment. And it's not going to be, it's usually the small school system. So if you have a system with 40 employees that is short $250, it doesn't cost much to fill that gap through the MFP. So in short, no matter how you cut this, even if it's $6 million, we're going to save a bunch of money because we're not going to leave the teachers behind. So if we don't give them their pay raise through this methodology of paying down MFP, we're going to probably spend another $200 million next year, as we have in the last couple of years. And kind of not outside the general scope of this bill, it also is going to save our higher education institutions about $75 million. So obviously, however you cut this thing, the fiscal note is just a reduction on it reduces the amount of money we save. That's all it's doing. And I think it probably will be in the neighborhood of 200,000 or 300,000, best guess, from my discussions with the retirement system.
Okay. Representative Marcel with a question.
Thank you. Representative Bakala, I want to thank you for your work on this bill and other bills, but particularly this one. I understand that there was some amendments that were done to make sure that all the schools, was it 9 parishes that you all?
I don't even think it's 9. The number kind of varies back and forth, again, depending on those variables that the TSRL system has plugged in. But it's going to be a very few systems are going to be a little bit short. I think the worst case scenario is some system under one of the estimates was going to only have $1,450 to
And at any
provide,
rate-
but this will make up the difference to the UAL.
At any rate, we will save money by paying down the UAL, right? Correct?
Yes, a lot of money.
A lot of money. And so I want to thank you at the proper time. I'd like to move it favorably. I know I don't vote with you often, but I want to make sure I got this in.
Well, I vote for all your bills.
At the proper time, I'd like to move it favorably.
I'm not going to comment on that last statement by Chairman Bakala, but all right, Representative DeWitt.
Sir. Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. Thank you. At the appropriate time.
It's already been moved.
Is it moved?
Yes.
Okay, great. That's it.
All right, we have some cards here. In support, present and in support, not wishing to speak, is a designee of elected official, Governor Jeff Landry, Lance Maxwell, on behalf of the governor. Also present and would like to speak for informational purposes, Cynthia Posey, the Louisiana Federation of Teachers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Cynthia Posey with the Louisiana Federation of Teachers. I come to the table this evening simply to clarify. There seemed to be some confusion in the press about our position on the bill. And House said yesterday we did put in a white card. Tonight we are putting in a white card. We do want to recognize and thank Governor Landry for, taking a firm position on that teachers and support staff need to have a permanent pay raise. And that's what this will do. We also want to make sure that people know that this takes steps to make the defined benefit, which is one of the best teacher recruitment and retention tools that we have to attract and keep teachers. This strengthens that, and so we really appreciate that. We do want to make clear that we do have some concerns. We want to make sure that the language is tightened. We reached out to the governor's office. In fact, I've just come from a meeting with them, and we're working towards that, and so we really appreciate that. But until we have the language, we just want to be clear that we do have a white card in. So thank you all for your time, and we really appreciate the hard work y'all are doing this session. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, no further questions. Representative Marcel has made a motion to report House Bill 5 favorable. No objections. House Bill 5 is reported favorable.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you. By the way, just so you'll know, I'm an interim member. Why I have my name tag up there, but I'm not allowed to serve while you're in session. So I know some people ask about that.
House Bill 5 by Representative Bakala to enact Title 17 relative to compensation of teachers, other school employees, to require public school systems to provide for a salary increase of certain personnel, provides for the amount of increase, related benefits, provides for a funding mechanism.
Members, we're getting in the House bill, so I ask that you please get situated so we can take on the debate. Rep. Bakala on your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is a companion bill to HB 7, which we passed out of this House and is now in the Senate. One of the pieces of HB 7 was the elimination of certain programs or funds within the Constitution, Louisiana Quality Education Fund, Louisiana Education Quality Support Fund, and the Education Excellence Fund. Together, they totaled $1.96 billion. That money will be directed, is directed in HB 7 to paying down unfunded accrued liability in the teacher's retirement system. That is not what this bill is. This bill is simply saying savings realized at a local level by this investment shall be used to pay the teacher salaries or make permanent salary increases not less than $2,000 for certified and $1,000 for support personnel, with the caveat, if some systems fall a little bit short, we will deal with that in the MFP. So in essence, that is the bill. Mr. Speaker, I'm available for questions.
Rep. Phelps for a question on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Bacala, after this $2,000 was actually just solidifying the $2,000 that they've had the last 2 years, will the districts now be totally responsible for any raises outside of the legislation?
I'm sorry.
Would the districts now be responsible for any raise outside of the legislature?
Well, no, in the future years, we can do whatever we want. We're not making permanent that we will no longer give raises through the legislative process, which is really just the MFP process, except when we do what we did in the last couple of years. So this is, we're providing a $2,000 increase, which will go forward. You know, they will own that money forever. And how they give future raises at the local level or how we might provide for future pay increases is totally outside the scope of the bill.
And I guess that wasn't thought of in the scope of the bill.
No, I think what we're saying in this bill, I think we really don't want to debate HB 7. It's already left this chamber. What we're saying is the savings realized at the local level by the pay down of the UAL shall be used to give teacher pay raises within the parameters that are in the bill.
Okay, and with the normal MFP that the teachers normally, that their raises normally go through that process, will that be calculated into their salary schedules at this point, since it was not the same as an MFP?
If I understand your question, the bill that falls outside of MFP, right now, individual school districts are paying they're paying for the UAL. So this will allow their payments to go down by about 4.79 percentage points of total payroll. So we're going to give a mechanism. They're going to have, it's kind of like we're going to pay their car note, so now they'll have more money to invest in their house note.
Okay, and I do understand that part, but I'm back to the teacher raise, the $2,000 that they're given. Normally, the teacher raise is given through an MFP and is calculated to be used within their teacher salary schedule. Since this is not done the traditional way, will that be now part of my teacher salary schedule so that I'm able to get my raises per the district?
Well, I'm not sure that I follow. I'm telling you that what we're doing here is freeing up funds so that schools can give that pay raise and mandated that they dedicate the savings that they have on benefits. They dedicate the savings to teacher pay raises. And keep in mind that this reduction that we're providing is not a one-time reduction. This is a perpetual reduction in their liability with the retirement system.
Okay, so will this be enough to with the excess money that's left over? Is there any dedication
I'm really
for that
having
money?
a hard time hearing you. If you can get a little closer.
Members, if you can hold your conversations down, I'd appreciate it.
With the 2,000 over the years to come, would that be enough? I don't think it would be enough to continue any type of raise. So is there any dedication to the excess funds that they will receive going forward?
They will save money going forward perpetually. The savings isn't a one-year savings. The savings is they will save, let's just call it 5% every year from now until. So perpetually they will no longer have a UAL debt to the degree they do. We're going to cut it down from $8 billion to $6 billion, and it'll actually will go down quicker. So the value of this is like $16 billion over the next 10 years. So we are allowing them to have perpetual savings that they will be used with this to fund this raise.
After they fund the raise, are those savings dedicated to use elsewhere? Can the district do whatever they want to do after the 2,000 is given? Is it allocated? Is it dedicated anywhere in the bill?
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, no. Right now, if a system has more money than is necessary to fund the raise, they have flexibility to use it as they please, but I do believe there's going to be amendment filed. It should be published right now, so that amendment may answer your question.
Okay, so for clarification, for those who are listening, this $2,000 just makes permanent the $2,000 that they got, the teachers received in 2023, that they received in 2024, 25, they will know that that $2,000 would not be a stipend. It is now attached to their salary.
I think that would be an accurate way to explain it to a teacher. Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you.
We have no further questions. We have an amendment, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Speaker and members, Representative Mallorin offers up a one-page set of amendments, set number 144.
Rep. Miller, on your amendment.
Thank you, Madam Clerk and Mr. Speaker. Members, first of all, I want to say thank you to Representative Brass for working with me on this amendment. What the amendment does is says there are going to be some school systems that will have excess funds after they give the pay raises. It says that if you're one of those systems that is fortunate enough to have excess funds, it defines what you can use it for. And it also includes benefits in addition to the pay raise. So their whole, the systems, if they have funds after pay raise and benefits, you have to put it back in the classroom at the school level for teachers and administrators at the school level, or if you're going to improve security at a school system or at a school building. It is not defined in here, but my intent is that when we're talking about it, it also covers early childhood. There is potential ambiguity, but it does cover that because there is early childhood at the school level. So if you're looking at it, that is my intent. I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions on the amendment? Any objections? Rep. Bagley, do you have a question on the amendment? Members, when you have questions on the amendment, you should have a button on your desk that says question amendment. If you don't, I'm sorry. Rep. Bagley for a question on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is simply that so I can understand, your intent is money that's left over from parishes that are wealthy enough that they don't need to use it for that, their teachers make enough. That money must still be used for educational.
It has to be used for education, and it's.
Thank you.
Rep. Phelps for a question on the amendment.
Rep. Mellorine, when you mentioned early childhood, I know that you said that that's your intent. I didn't hear the part of what's in the bill. Is there any indication for that?
Yeah, so the bill mirrors Bessie Bulletin language, and it talks about instruction and school administration. And so it doesn't talk specifically about early childhood, but I believe early childhood falls under instruction. And so that is, my intent is that it applies.
Is there any way we can work on that before that leaves the floor to put that in?
Talking with staff, they think it's covered by the way Bessie defines it. So I think it's clear.
But instruction doesn't necessarily say specific early childhood.
No, but what we're looking at is if you look at the Bessie policy and Bessie Bulletin language, it's defined there. We want to use defined terms so there's no ambiguity when it gets the district level.
Now, early childhood is defined there with other things, correct?
I'm sorry?
In that instruction definition, early childhood is one of the things that are specified there, correct?
Instruction shall provide for the activities dealing directly with the interaction between teachers and students. I mean, that's a student.
So it could be any grade other than early childhood.
I mean, a student is, if you're at a school and you're doing a pre-K program, you're considered a student.
And I'm sorry, maybe I missed where you said pre-K. Is that in the bill? I was back there, so maybe I didn't hear that. If it's not in the bill where you mentioned pre-K or early childhood, how will we know specifically it's going toward instructions for that group of students?
It talks about a school system and a teacher. So, I mean, if you're at a private facility, this wouldn't apply. The pay raise only goes to teachers at a school system. and administrators.
Okay. Maybe I missed your whole amendment. Because if it comes to, I guess when I mentioned the excess to Representative Bargala, they could, Caddo Parish could get the extra funds, and it couldn't be instruction at Caddo Middle Magnet.
Correct.
So how will we be sure, and I apologize if I didn't hear you, how will they know that that money excess will go specifically to early childhood?
It doesn't have to specifically go to it.
And I apologize, that's what I thought you meant.
No, it doesn't. I'm saying
Okay.
this all in addition to everything else, this falls under it. Is what I meant. What I meant by it.
So with that being said, the 3 funds that we have repealed for early childhood and the CCAP and all of these early pre-K 4 programs, so does that mean that the state will not be contributing to that population at all moving forward?
No.
Just not dedicated, only through general funds?
Funds.
Only through general funds?
There's other dedications.
Okay, thank you.
Rep. McFarland for a question on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Currently, the revenues that we're going to be replacing, such as 8G, Education Excellence, can they use those dollars for any other purposes once they've paid their share of the UAL? Can those dollars be used for anything beyond what you've listed currently in your amendment?
The 8G funds?
Yes.
They can be used to, I think, purchase textbooks. And there's a list. I don't have the list with me.
Okay, so the funds that they're currently using, if they receive, and some may not, some maybe it covers just enough to pay, but currently the funds, whatever they are, whether they're 8G, Educational Excellence, whatever it's coming from, they have flexibility to use them on the items that you listed in your amendment. Do they have the flexibility to use them on anything beyond that?
I think the only one that I know of for certain would be textbooks, but this is instruction. So
Yeah.
this covers it, I think.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
There's no further questions on the amendment. Is there any objections to the adoption of the amendment? Hearing no objection, the amendment is adopted. Back on the bill. You have a right to close on the bill. They had a question pop up. Will you take a question on closing?
Yes.
Rep. Chasson for a question on closing.
Good morning, Chairman Bacala. Quick question for you. Just want to humbly ask, between yourself and Chairman McFarland, with the dissolving of these funds, it's actually a minor glitch in it is we're going to lose out on 1,600 or actually 1,590 early childhood seats. If between you guys, if you could just humbly take a look at it to see if we could.
Here's what I'll speak to on that. I've always been a supporter of early childhood. As a matter of fact, I didn't just tag on myself as a co-sponsor. I helped write a bill with Representative Brass where we freed up a portion of a $1 million tax that most parishes get for early childhood, and we turned that into an early childhood center. So don't get the idea that I'm not supporting early childhood. I am.
Yes, sir.
But at the same time, also don't let it. That was HB 7. This is HB 5. So that is now a decision for the Senate to make whether they concur with our passage of that bill, which does away with those funds. I can only speak to the fact that I will continue, as I have in the past, to support funding for early childhood education to the level that makes sense. Look, I talked to an early childhood center last week. They have a waiting list, but the waiting list has nothing to do with money. It has to do with qualified employees.
Right.
And so it was not a money issue for them. It's we can't find people who want to work in the daycare.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you.
You have a right to close. Chairman Bacala moves final passage of the bill. Those in favor vote yea. Those opposed vote nay. Madam Clerk, please open machines. Members, vote your machines. Diamond, yea. Members, vote your machines. Bayham, yea. Stagney, yea. Emerson, yea. Desatel. Mellarine, yea. Desatel, yea. Members, either voting. Dustin Miller, yea. Phelps, yea. Members who voting, the clerk will close the machine. We have 99 yeas, 0 nays, and the bill finally passes. Rep. Bacala moves to adopt the title, moves to reconsider the vote. Bill finally passes. Lay the motion on the table without objection, so order. Next bill.